6 months after first contact, Marcus stood in the crystal gardens of New Geneva, the city that had grown around the permanent convergence embassy in what used to be rural Switzerland. The garden itself was a marvel of interspecies cooperation, earth plants growing alongside flora from 17 different worlds, their roots intertwined through soil enriched with beneficial microorganisms from across the galaxy. The lioness walking beside him looked exactly as she had in that crater, but Marcus could see her true form overlaid on the familiar shape. Kira had chosen to maintain her original disguise as a gesture of friendship, a reminder of how their species had first met. "The integration proceeds faster than anyone anticipated," she said, her voice carrying both speech and telepathic harmony. 70% of your population has experienced some level of awakening. The Convergence Council is impressed. Marcus smiled, watching a group of human children play with young beings from the aqueous worlds, their laughter echoing off structures that seemed grown from pure light. Humans adapt quickly when we're not busy being afraid of everything. The transformation hadn't been without challenges. The first weeks after contact had seen global chaos as awakened and unawakened populations struggled to coexist. Governments fell, new social structures emerged, and ancient institutions crumbled under the weight of cosmic perspective. But humanity had surprised everyone, including themselves. The awakening brought with it not just expanded consciousness but enhanced empathy. Conflict resolution became intuitive when people could feel each other's emotions directly. Environmental destruction stopped almost overnight, when humans could sense the planet's living systems as extensions of themselves. Crime rates plummeted as potential criminals found themselves incapable of causing harm they would feel as if inflicted on themselves. Mental illness, long humanity's hidden plague, began healing as isolated minds connected to the vast network of conscious beings throughout the galaxy. "The Colonel sends his regards. By the way," Marcus said, grinning at Kira's surprised expression, "he's leading the Joint Human Convergence Military Integration Program. Turns out when you can feel your enemy's intentions directly, warfare becomes obsolete pretty quickly." Indeed, the man who had tried to capture Kira was now one of Earth's most effective ambassadors to warrior species within the convergence. His military background combined with awakened empathy made him uniquely qualified to help aggressive cultures find peaceful solutions to their conflicts. Sarah approached them across the garden, her veterinary skills having evolved into something closer to interspecies medicine. She could now heal not just Earth animals but the various forms of life that made up the convergence population. "Marcus, the Council is ready for you," she said. "They want to discuss the next phase of integration." Marcus nodded, feeling the familiar flutter of nervousness that came with major diplomatic responsibilities. As Earth's first contact coordinator, he'd helped negotiate humanity's provisional membership in the convergence. Today they would discuss full integration, the point at which Earth would be considered an equal partner in galactic civilization. The Council chamber was a marvel of engineering that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions human minds were still learning to perceive. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in forms that ranged from energy beings like Kira to massive, crystalline entities that communicated through harmonic vibrations. At the center sat the Prime Consciousness, a collective being composed of the first species to achieve cosmic awareness over 2 million years ago. When it spoke, every mind in the chamber resonated with concepts too complex for any single species to grasp alone. "Marcus, Chen of Earth, your species has exceeded all expectations for integration, speed, and cultural adaptation. The Convergence Council is prepared to offer humanity full membership status." The announcement should have been cause for celebration, but Marcus felt a weight of responsibility that went beyond personal achievement. Full membership meant humanity would gain access to technologies that could eliminate poverty, disease, and environmental destruction, but it also meant accepting responsibility for guiding other emerging species toward awakening. "What would be required of us?" Marcus asked, speaking not just for himself but for the awakened consciousness of his entire species. Earth would become a contact world, specializing in first contact protocols for aggressive species. Your people's unique combination of empathy and survival instinct makes them ideally suited for approaching civilizations that might otherwise be deemed too dangerous for contact. Marcus understood. Humanity's violent history, rather than disqualifying them from galactic citizenship, had given them special insight into helping other warrior species evolve beyond aggression. Earth would become a training ground for the galaxy's most challenging diplomatic missions. Additionally, the Prime Consciousness continued, your species would assume guardianship of this galactic sector, monitoring 17 developing worlds and determining when they are ready for contact. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus. The same instincts that had made him risk everything to save a trapped lioness would now be applied on a cosmic scale, helping trapped civilizations free themselves from their own limitations. On behalf of humanity, Marcus said formally, we accept the responsibility and the honor of full Convergence membership. The response was a wave of joy and welcome that echoed through the minds of billions of beings across the galaxy. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face as he experienced the emotional welcome of species he'd never met, creatures who rejoiced that humanity had found its way home to the stars. Later, as he walked back through the Crystal Gardens with Kira, Marcus reflected on how drastically his life had changed. 6 months ago, he'd been a simple wildlife rescuer whose biggest concern was whether insurance would cover equipment damage. Now he was helping shape the cosmic future of human civilization. Do you ever regret it? Kira asked, sensing his contemplative mood. Your old life was simpler, quieter. Marcus considered the question seriously. He missed the straightforward nature of animal rescue, the clear distinction between helper and helped, but he could never regret the choice that had brought humanity into the galactic community. Every species needs someone willing to reach down into the crater and pull them to safety, he said finally. Sometimes that's a trapped lioness. Sometimes it's an entire world ready to join something bigger than itself. Kira's response was a warm pulse of understanding and gratitude. Through their permanent mental link, Marcus could feel her people's continued amazement at humanity's rapid evolution, from isolated warriors to cosmic diplomats. As the alien sun set over New Geneva, casting rainbow shadows through the crystal structures, Marcus received a communication through his enhanced awareness. Another distress signal, another species in trouble. This time it was coming from a world where silicon-based life forms had achieved technology, but remained trapped by xenophobic isolationism. Marcus smiled, feeling the familiar surge of purpose that had driven him to rescue animals throughout his career. Some things never changed even when the scale expanded to include entire civilizations. Looks like we have another rescue mission, he told Kira. She shifted into her energy form, patterns of light dancing with excitement across her transformed body. Lead the way, Ambassador Chen. The galaxy is full of beings who need someone willing to risk everything to save them. Together, they walked toward the launch platform, where a ship waited to carry them to the stars. Behind them, Earth spun peacefully in its orbit, no longer alone in the darkness, but part of a vast community of light that stretched across the cosmos. Marcus Chen had risked everything to save a trapped lioness, and in return, she had helped save his entire species. In the end, it turned out that compassion was indeed the most powerful force in the universe, capable of transforming not just individuals but entire civilizations. The rescue mission that had begun in a mysterious crater would echo through eternity, as humanity took its place among the stars and dedicated itself to helping other lost souls find their way home. The Convergence ships appeared at the edge of Earth's atmosphere like stars materializing from nothing. 7 vessels of impossible beauty descended through the cloud layer, their organic hulls shifting color as they adapted to Earth's light spectrum. To human eyes, they looked like enormous jellyfish swimming through air, graceful and alien and utterly peaceful. To Earth's military sensors, they registered as an invasion fleet. Marcus felt the global panic through his expanded awareness. Every defense network on the planet activated simultaneously. Missile batteries swiveled skyward, fighter squadrons scrambled from bases across 6 continents, and nuclear submarines surfaced to clear their launch tubes. Within minutes, humanity would fire everything it had at beings who had come in peace. Get me through to NORAD, Marcus said urgently into his radio. Presidential emergency frequency. The response was immediate but hostile. This is General Morrison, NORAD Command. Identify yourself and your current location. Sir, this is Marcus Chen. I'm aboard the first alien vessel serving as a communication intermediary. The ships entering our atmosphere are diplomatic vessels, not hostile. If we fire on them, we'll be starting a war with a galactic civilization that could destroy us without effort. Mr. Chen, you're either suffering from extreme psychological trauma or you're collaborating with an enemy force. Either way, you're not qualified to make tactical assessments. Through his link with Kira, Marcus felt her growing alarm. The approaching ships could defend themselves, but doing so would prove humanity's hostility to the Convergence Council. Earth would be classified as an aggressive species and quarantined indefinitely. The window for peaceful contact is closing. Kira's mental voice carried desperate urgency. If your people attack my colleagues, the Convergence will withdraw forever. Your species will lose its chance to join the galactic community. Marcus made a decision that went against every protocol he'd ever learned. He opened his mind fully to Kira's ship and allowed her to broadcast his consciousness directly to every awakened human on Earth. Suddenly, millions of people could feel what he felt, see what he saw, understand what he understood. They experienced his memories of Kira's rescue, his mental contact with her, and his growing understanding of what the Convergence represented. The effect was immediate and profound. Awakened humans around the world began calling their governments, their military contacts, their local news stations. They spoke with the authority of personal experience, describing peaceful intentions and cosmic opportunities in terms that couldn't be dismissed as mass hysteria. Dr. Elizabeth Warren, director of SETI, felt Marcus's broadcast from her observatory in California. Within minutes, she was on emergency lines to NASA and the Pentagon, explaining that the signals matched theoretical models for benevolent contact. Professor James Liu, a xenobiology expert at MIT who had never believed in alien life, suddenly found himself understanding concepts of interspecies communication that transformed his entire worldview. He began broadcasting explanations on every academic network he could access. Religious leaders across multiple faiths experienced visions of cosmic unity that felt more real than their own heartbeats. They spoke to their congregations about divine purpose and humanity's role in a larger creation. But for every voice calling for peace, there were others demanding war. The colonel who had tried to capture Kira was now in contact with Pentagon hardliners, describing alien mind control and the need for immediate nuclear response. Military contractors saw profit in alien technology obtained through force. Politicians worried about losing control if their populations gained cosmic awareness. The world split along the lines of the awakening. Those who could feel the truth through expanded consciousness worked desperately to prevent violence. Those who remained in normal human awareness prepared for the battle they believed was coming. The first missiles launched from a Chinese destroyer in the South China Sea. 3 nuclear-tipped projectiles streaked toward the nearest Convergence ship, their contrails visible for hundreds of miles. Marcus felt Kira's anguish like a physical blow. The ship under attack could easily deflect the missiles, but doing so would demonstrate the vast technological superiority of the Convergence. Humanity would realize they were completely outmatched, leading to either complete surrender or desperate last-ditch attacks. "Don't defend yourselves," Marcus said urgently. "Let me stop this." He reached out through the crystal device, not to the Convergence ships, but to the awakened humans around the globe. Millions of expanded minds suddenly focused on a single purpose: preventing humanity's first act of cosmic aggression. The results were immediate and miraculous. Awakened technicians at the missile launch site suddenly understood what they had done and began emergency shutdown procedures. The projectiles' guidance systems mysteriously malfunctioned as awakened programmers worldwide simultaneously accessed satellite networks. One by one, the missiles fell harmlessly into the ocean, their nuclear warheads safely disarmed by people who had never seen the launch codes but somehow knew exactly how to stop the weapons. Similar scenarios played out across the globe. Fighter pilots found themselves unable to complete attack runs as their enhanced awareness made them physically incapable of firing on peaceful beings. Nuclear missile crews reported mysterious equipment failures that prevented launches. The awakening had given humanity a built-in protection against its own worst instincts. General Morrison's voice crackled through Marcus's radio, furious and confused. "Chen, what the hell is happening? Half my personnel are refusing orders, and our weapon systems are failing randomly." "They're not failing, General," Marcus replied. "They're being shut down by awakened humans who understand that attacking peaceful aliens would be the biggest mistake in our species' history." "Marcus," Kira's voice in his mind carried new hope. "The Convergence ships are requesting permission to land. They want to establish formal diplomatic contact with your leaders. Where do they want to land? The answer came with images of 7 locations around the world. The United Nations building in New York, the European Space Agency in France, Beijing's Forbidden City, the Kremlin in Moscow, the African Union headquarters in Ethiopia, the Australian Parliament, and Brazilia's government district. Each ship would touch down simultaneously, offering formal first contact to every major governmental and cultural center on Earth, but landing in populated areas would trigger mass panic among the non-awakened population. Marcus realized he was looking at the final test. The convergence wasn't just evaluating humanity's aggression. They were testing whether the awakened population could maintain peace and order during the most disruptive event in human history. "General," Marcus said into his radio, "I need you to listen to me very carefully. 7 alien ships are about to land at major cities around the world. They're coming in peace, carrying ambassadors who want to establish formal relations with Earth's governments. Your job is to maintain order and facilitate first contact, not to start a war we can't win." "And why exactly should I trust the word of someone who's been compromised by alien mind control?" Marcus smiled, feeling the collective support of millions of awakened minds around the globe. "Because, General, in about 30 seconds you're going to feel the awakening yourself, and then you'll understand everything." The crystal device in his hand blazed with brilliant light as Kira's ship transmitted the awakening signal directly to NORAD Command. Through their mental link, Marcus felt the moment when General Morrison's consciousness expanded beyond human limitations. The silence that followed was profound. When Morrison spoke again, his voice carried the same harmonic quality that Marcus had heard from the awakened soldiers. "My God, they're not invaders at all. They're family." The convergence ships began their descent to Earth's surface, carrying with them the promise of humanity's cosmic future. And Marcus Chen, wildlife rescuer turned interspecies ambassador, prepared to help his species take its first steps into a universe filled with wonders beyond imagination. Marcus made his choice in the space between heartbeats. As the targeting systems locked onto them and weapons prepared to fire, he spoke a single word that would echo through history. "Now." Kira's illusion dissolved like smoke in the wind. The weather balloon facade vanished, revealing the ship's true form to every sensor, every camera, every human eye watching the sky. The organic curves of alien technology gleamed in the afternoon sun, beautiful and impossible and undeniably real. Kira herself began to change, her lioness form shifting into something that existed between matter and energy. She became a being of flowing light, maintaining enough physical presence to stand beside Marcus but clearly revealing her non-human nature. Golden radiance poured from her transformed body, and complex patterns of communication rippled across her surface like living text. The effect was immediate and profound. Every cell phone in a 50-mile radius began streaming video to social media platforms. News helicopters that had been monitoring the military exercise suddenly found themselves documenting first contact with an alien species. Satellite feeds picked up the impossible sight and broadcast it to watching stations around the globe. But more importantly, the ship's revelation triggered a massive expansion of the awakening field. Humans across 3 states suddenly found their consciousness expanded, their awareness heightened. The dormant genetic markers, left by the ancient convergence contact, blazed to life in millions of minds, simultaneously. Marcus felt it happen through his link with Kira. It was like watching sunrise across a continent, as human after human suddenly understood that they were not alone in the universe and never had been. The pursuing jets fell back, their pilots overwhelmed by the sudden influx of expanded awareness. Through his radio, Marcus could hear their confused reports mixing with transmissions from awakening humans everywhere. "Base, this is Eagle 1. I can't target them. There's someone in my head telling me this is wrong. Control, this is News 7. Are you seeing this? The object is clearly not of human origin, and it's projecting some kind of field that's affecting electronics nationwide. Emergency services. We're getting reports of mass hallucinations, but the subjects are all describing the same thing: enhanced perception, telepathic contact, and overwhelming feelings of peace and connection." Kira's transformed voice spoke directly into Marcus's mind. But now he could sense that she was broadcasting to every awakened human simultaneously. Her words carried concepts that transcended language, ideas that spoke directly to the expanded consciousness of her listeners. People of Earth, I am Kira of the Shifted, ambassador of the Convergence. I come not as conqueror, but as friend, not to rule, but to invite. Your species stands at the threshold of cosmic awareness. The choice of whether to step forward belongs to you." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Marcus felt the collective voice of awakening humanity reaching back toward Kira. Millions of minds suddenly capable of telepathic communication. Fear was there. Confusion and terror from those who couldn't accept what they were experiencing. But underneath it all was something stronger: curiosity, wonder, and a profound sense of homecoming. Humanity had been alone in the dark for so long that many had forgotten they were waiting for the lights to come on. Below them, chaos was spreading across the military base. Half the personnel were experiencing rapid awakening, their consciousness expanding to encompass new realities. The other half were trying to maintain normal operations while their comrades spoke of voices in their heads and impossible revelations about humanity's cosmic destiny. The colonel's voice cut through the radio chatter, harsh with desperation. "All units, ignore the hallucinations. Target the bogey and fire." This is a terrorist attack using some kind of psychoactive weapon. But his orders carried no weight with the awakened soldiers. They could feel Kira's peaceful intentions, could sense the benevolent nature of her presence. The idea of attacking her felt as alien and wrong as striking a beloved friend. "Marcus," Kira's voice in his mind carried urgency. "The ship's power reserves are critical. I must land soon. But your military will see it as an invasion force touching down on sovereign soil." Through the crystal device, Marcus could sense other ships approaching. Not human aircraft, but vessels from the Convergence itself. Kira's emergency beacon had been transmitting since the revelation began, and her people were coming to investigate. Within hours, Earth would have dozens of alien ships in its airspace. The choice was no longer whether to reveal the truth, but how to make sure humanity's first impression on the galactic community was peaceful, rather than hostile. Marcus activated his radio on an emergency frequency that would reach every government communication system in the country. His voice, amplified by Kira's technology, carried to military commanders, political leaders, and emergency coordinators from coast to coast. "This is Marcus Chen, Wildlife Rescue Coordinator and official representative of the being you've been tracking. I'm transmitting from aboard an alien vessel, but I'm here by choice and unharmed. The entity with me is not hostile. She's an ambassador from a galactic alliance that has been watching our development for millions of years." The radio silence that followed was deafening. Then everyone started talking at once. Government officials demanded to know his authority. Military commanders wanted tactical assessments. Scientists begged for data. Religious leaders sought theological implications. The media clamored for exclusive interviews. Through it all, Marcus could feel the continuing expansion of human consciousness. The awakening was no longer limited to those in direct contact with Kira's ship. It was spreading from person to person like a beneficial virus, carried by some mechanism that worked through human social connections. Teachers found themselves helping confused students understand expanded awareness. Parents comforted children who suddenly claimed they could hear thoughts. Doctors worked to distinguish between genuine awakening and psychological breaks under stress. But for every human who panicked, two more embraced the change. The sensation of mental expansion, of suddenly understanding concepts that had been beyond human comprehension, proved addictive in the best possible way. People didn't want to return to their former limitations. "Your species learns quickly," Kira observed with something like pride. The Convergence chose well when they marked Earth for potential inclusion. Through the ship's sensors, Marcus could see the approaching alien vessels, sleek craft that looked more like living sea creatures than traditional spacecraft. They moved with fluid grace, clearly designed by minds that thought in 3 dimensions rather than the human habit of horizontal travel. "How many ships?" he asked. Kira's response carried both reassurance and warning. 7 vessels, each carrying diplomatic specialists trained in first contact protocols. They would establish formal communication with Earth's governments and begin the long process of cultural exchange. But their arrival would also trigger automatic responses from every military on the planet. Earth's defense systems would interpret the ships as an invasion force. Within minutes of their arrival, nuclear weapons would be prepared, mass evacuations ordered, and martial law declared across multiple continents. "Unless," Marcus said, understanding flooding through him, Someone who understands both sides is there to explain what's really happening. Kira's agreement rippled through their mental link. The convergence needed a human advocate, someone who could speak to both species and help prevent the catastrophic misunderstandings that had doomed other first contact scenarios throughout galactic history. Marcus Chen, who had spent his career rescuing trapped animals, was about to become the most important translator in human history. The alien ships were only minutes away from entering Earth's atmosphere. Everything that happened next would depend on his ability to help two entirely different species understand each other's intentions before fear and aggression destroyed any hope of peaceful contact. Time was running out, and the fate of both worlds rested in the hands of a man whose only qualification was his willingness to risk everything to save a trapped lioness. The ground beneath Marcus began to vibrate, then crack. Kira stood beside him, her lioness form shimmering as she concentrated on maintaining the illusion while her ship prepared to emerge. The crystal device in his hand grew warm as it channeled his understanding of human technology to her damaged systems. Above them, the energy weapon reached full charge. Marcus could feel it like a weight pressing down on his skull, ready to unleash enough power to vaporize everything in the crater. Fire! 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 The colonel screamed, but nothing happened. Marcus opened his eyes to see the affected soldiers standing motionless, their golden eyes glowing brighter than ever. They hadn't disobeyed orders exactly. They'd simply forgotten how to operate their weapons. The awakening Kira had triggered was protecting her, turning the soldiers' enhanced consciousness against their training. The colonel spun between his men, grabbing weapons and trying to fire them himself, but each device seemed to malfunction the moment he touched it. The energy signatures were wrong, the targeting systems couldn't lock on, the power cells drained mysteriously. "What the hell is wrong with you people?" he shouted. "Sir?" Sergeant Williams said calmly, his voice carrying an odd harmonic quality. "Perhaps we should reconsider our approach to this situation." The ground split open with a sound like thunder. From the widening crack, something began to rise. To Marcus, who could see through Kira's illusion thanks to their mental link, it was magnificent. The ship was organic and technological at once, grown rather than built, its surface flowing like liquid metal while maintaining perfect structural integrity. But to the soldiers above, it appeared to be exactly what Marcus had suggested. A large weather balloon, white and unremarkable, trailing sensor equipment that looked convincingly terrestrial. "Stand down. Stand down!" the colonel ordered, recognizing what he thought was military property. "That's one of ours. Experimental atmospheric research equipment." The ship continued rising, carrying Marcus and Kira with it. Marcus felt a moment of vertigo as they lifted beyond the crater walls, but Kira steadied him with a touch of her mind. Through their connection, he could sense her relief at being airborne again, but also her growing concern. The illusion was working, but it was draining her reserves. Her ship's power systems were still damaged, and maintaining the camouflage while flying was pushing her to her limits. They needed to get clear of the military perimeter quickly. "How far can you go like this?" Marcus asked. Kira's response was measured in minutes rather than miles. The ship could maintain altitude and the illusion for perhaps 20 minutes before her remaining power gave out. After that, they would crash, and the real appearance of alien technology would be impossible to hide. Below them, the military base was erupting into chaos. The colonel was screaming into multiple radios, trying to coordinate recovery of what he believed was sensitive equipment, but the affected soldiers were becoming more problematic by the minute. Their enhanced awareness was spreading to other personnel, and those who tried to pursue the weather balloon found their vehicles mysteriously malfunctioning. "They're waking up," Marcus realized. "All of them," Kira confirmed his understanding. Her presence had triggered something dormant in human genetics, but the process couldn't be reversed. The awakening would continue to spread, slowly but inevitably, throughout the human population. The question was whether humanity would embrace the change or fight it. Sarah's voice crackled through Marcus's radio, which somehow still worked despite being well outside normal range. "Marcus, where are you? The GPS shows you're 500 feet in the air." "I'm safe," he replied, hoping it was true. But things are about to get complicated. Through the ship's hull, which was apparently transparent from the inside, Marcus could see other aircraft approaching. Military jets scrambled to intercept what appeared to be a drifting weather balloon. The pilots would be confused by their orders, but they would follow them anyway. "Can you make us invisible?" Marcus asked. Kira's mental response was tinged with regret. Full invisibility required power she no longer had. The ship could manage basic camouflage, but against military sensors actively looking for them, it wouldn't be enough. The first jet passed close enough for Marcus to see the pilot's face. The man looked puzzled, checking his instruments repeatedly. His sensors were telling him one thing while his eyes showed him something completely different. Marcus realized that the pilot was also beginning to awaken, his enhanced perception starting to see through the illusion. That gave him an idea. "What if we don't hide?" he said. "What if we reveal just enough to make them understand we're not a threat?" Kira's uncertainty rippled through their mental link. Showing her true nature to military pilots could trigger the exact aggressive response they were trying to avoid. "Not your true nature," Marcus clarified. "Something in between. Let them see that we're something unusual, but not necessarily hostile." The approaching jets were close enough now that Marcus could see their weapon systems. If the pilots decided the balloon was actually a threat, they would shoot first and investigate the wreckage later. Marcus concentrated on projecting calm, peaceful intentions through the crystal device. To his amazement, he felt the emotions being amplified and broadcast by Kira's ship. The jets' approach suddenly became less aggressive, their flight patterns shifting to observation rather than attack formation. Through his radio, Marcus could hear the pilots' confused reports to base. They were seeing something that their instruments couldn't identify, but their instincts were telling them it wasn't dangerous. The awakening was spreading even to them, carried by the ship's expanding field of influence. "Base, this is Eagle 1. The object appears to be some kind of, I don't know how to describe this. It's not showing hostile intent. Recommend we escort it to safe airspace rather than engage." The colonel's voice exploded through the radio waves. "Eagle 1, you have orders to intercept and identify. If it's not one of ours, you shoot it down." "Sir, with respect, that doesn't feel like the right call here." Marcus could hear the confusion in the pilot's voice. The man was struggling between his training and his newly awakened intuition. The same thing was happening throughout the military base below, as enhanced humans found themselves questioning orders that felt fundamentally wrong, but not everyone was affected. Marcus could see other aircraft approaching from multiple directions. Older pilots, career military who had enough mental conditioning to resist the awakening process. These men would follow orders regardless of what their instincts told them. "We're about to have company," Marcus told Kira. "The kind that won't hesitate to shoot." Kira's response was a complex mix of determination and fear. Her ship couldn't outrun military jets, especially in its damaged condition. But she could do something else, something that would change the situation completely. She could drop all pretense and reveal herself fully, not just to the military, but to the entire world. Every camera, every sensor, every pair of eyes watching the sky would see an alien vessel in flight above Earth. There would be no hiding, no gradual contact, no careful preparation. Humanity would be forced to confront the reality of alien life immediately. "That would end your mission," Marcus said. "Earth would be classified as hostile the moment they started shooting at you." But Kira's mental voice carried a new resolve. Perhaps immediate contact was better than no contact at all. If enough humans were awakening, if enough minds were opening to expanded consciousness, then maybe humanity could handle the truth. The decision would rest with Marcus. As Earth's accidental ambassador, he would have to choose how first contact happened. Gradual and hidden with all the risks that entailed, or dramatic and public, forcing both species to confront their fears immediately. The approaching jets were within missile range now. Their pilots were already receiving targeting solutions from ground control. In moments they would fire, and the choice would be made for him. Marcus looked at Kira, whose lioness form was beginning to shimmer and fade as she prepared to reveal her true nature. Through their mental link, he could feel her absolute trust in his judgment. Whatever he decided, she would support. The weight of two species' futures settled on his shoulders as he made the choice that would change everything. The images flooded Marcus's mind like a waking dream. He saw vast cities of living crystal stretching across purple skies, beings of pure energy dancing between stars, and species beyond imagination working together in harmony. This was the Convergence, a galactic community of countless worlds and civilizations that had existed for millions of years. The Lioness showed him her true form then, not through physical change but through shared memory. She was one of the shifted beings who could take any shape but whose natural state was something between energy and matter. Beautiful flowing creatures of light and thought who served as ambassadors and explorers for the convergence. Her name was something like music made tangible, but she offered a simpler designation for his human understanding. Kira. You're a scout, Marcus said aloud, understanding flooding through him. You came here to study us. More images came. Earth as seen from space, glowing with the unique signature of a species on the verge of either breakthrough or self-destruction. Humanity balanced on a knife's edge between joining the greater galactic community and destroying itself through fear and aggression. Kira had been sent to observe, to determine if humans were ready for contact. But something had gone wrong. Through her memories, Marcus saw the crash. Kira's ship, invisible to human detection, had been struck by some kind of experimental weapon fired from the military facility. Not intentionally, but during a test of new satellite defense systems. The energy discharge had damaged her vessel's cloaking systems and forced an emergency landing. She'd taken the form of a lioness because predators were respected on most worlds. In her culture, showing strength was a sign of peaceful intent. Only the confident revealed their power openly. She hadn't realized that on Earth, predators were feared and hunted. The crater, Marcus said, pieces falling into place. That's where your ship landed. Kira confirmed this with a pulse of warm agreement in his mind. The ship was buried beneath them, still functional but badly damaged. She'd been trying to repair it when the humans arrived, but her tools required precise mental control. The stress and fear of discovery had disrupted her concentration. The worst part was that her presence was affecting nearby humans, awakening dormant genetic markers left by ancient contact between Earth and the convergence. The golden-eyed soldiers weren't infected. They were evolving, becoming what humanity was always meant to be. Jesus Christ, Marcus breathed. You're saying we're related to your people? Not related, Kira's mental voice corrected gently. Prepared. Long ago, the convergence had identified worlds with species that might one day join them. They'd made subtle genetic adjustments, not to control or change, but to ensure that when the time came, contact would be possible rather than fatal. Humans were one of 17 species currently being evaluated for inclusion. Most of the others had already passed the test and joined the galactic community. Only 3, including Earth, remained balanced on the edge of decision. The sound of heavy machinery reached them from above. Whatever the military was bringing, it was big, and it was almost ready. Kira's bioluminescent patterns shifted to urgent orange and red, colors that somehow communicated immediate danger. If they capture you, Marcus said, what happens to Earth's chance of joining your convergence? The answer came not in words, but in a wave of profound sadness. Earth would be marked as hostile, a species that responded to contact with violence and imprisonment. The genetic awakening that had begun in the soldiers would be classified as an alien virus, leading to quarantine, experimentation, and eventually, the complete suppression of humanity's evolutionary potential. Earth would be cut off from the galactic community forever, left to either destroy itself or develop in isolation for another 1,000,000 years before being reconsidered. And if I help you escape, hope, bright and warm as sunlight. If Kira could return safely to her people and report that at least some humans had chosen compassion over fear, Earth would be given more time. The awakening would continue slowly, naturally, giving humanity a chance to adapt and grow into its potential. But it meant Marcus would have to choose between his own species' immediate interests and their long-term survival. Above them, the colonel was screaming into his radio. I don't care what the eggheads want. That thing is contaminating my men. We terminate it now and sort out the science later. The specialized equipment was almost in position. Marcus could see the edge of some kind of energy weapon being lowered toward the crater opening. His radio crackled with Sarah's desperate voice. Marcus, whatever you're going to do, do it now. They're about to start shooting. Kira pressed something into his hand, a small crystal device that felt warm and seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. Through their mental connection, she explained its purpose. The crystal was a communication device that would let him maintain contact with the convergence. If he helped her escape, he would become Earth's unofficial ambassador, the bridge between two species. But it also meant he would know things his own government would kill to possess. He would carry secrets that could start wars or prevent them. His life would never be the same. "I've spent my whole career saving animals that couldn't save themselves," Marcus said quietly. "I guess it's time to save my own species too." He activated the crystal device. Immediately, his perception expanded. He could sense Kira's ship beneath them, its alien technology humming with barely contained power. He could feel the awakening minds of the soldiers above, their human consciousness struggling to integrate with expanded awareness. Most importantly, he could sense the weapon being aimed at them, its energy signature building toward lethal discharge. "How do we get your ship out?" he asked. Kira showed him a mental image of the crater walls dissolving as her vessel rose from its hiding place. But the process required her to drop her lioness disguise and reveal her true form. The humans above would see an alien ship emerging from their soil, and all hope of gradual contact would be lost, unless Marcus could find a way to make them see something else. "Can you make the ship look like something familiar?" he asked. "At least until we're clear?" Kira's response was uncertain. Her ship's camouflage systems were damaged, but with help from someone who understood human psychology, she might be able to project a convincing illusion. Marcus thought quickly. What would the military expect to see rising from a crater caused by experimental weapons? What would make them hesitate instead of immediately attacking? "A weather balloon," he said suddenly. "Make it look like one of their own weather balloons that got caught in the weapon's discharge. Something they'd want to recover intact for study." Kira's mental laughter was like silver bells ringing. Deception through misdirection, a very human solution. She could manage that, but only if Marcus helped her understand the exact appearance and behavior humans would expect. The energy weapon above them began to charge with an ominous whine. They had seconds before it fired. Marcus closed his eyes and focused on every weather balloon he'd ever seen, every news report about military equipment gone astray, every detail that would make the illusion convincing. He felt Kira absorbing the information, her alien intelligence adapting it for the ship's damaged systems. "Whatever happens," he said aloud, "I want you to know that not all humans are like the Colonel. Some of us still believe in doing the right thing even when it's dangerous." Kira's response was a wave of warmth and gratitude so intense it brought tears to his eyes. Then the ship began to rise and Marcus found himself standing at the center of the most important moment in human history. The rescue should have been routine. Marcus had lifted countless large animals from difficult situations, but as his team lowered the pulley system into the crater, the Lioness did something that changed everything. She stood up, not the careful, painful movement of an injured animal, but a fluid, graceful rise that spoke of perfect health and control. The Lioness stretched like she'd been taking a comfortable nap rather than lying unconscious in an alien crater for hours. "Marcus, what the hell?" Sarah's voice crackled through his radio. She was his lead veterinarian and had never seen anything that rattled her professional composure. Her vital signs just spiked, but not like stress or fear. Like she's excited? The military personnel above were shouting orders, their voices mixing into incomprehensible noise. Marcus ignored them, focused entirely on the magnificent creature before him. The Lioness looked directly at him and made that strange, almost purring sound again, longer this time, with subtle variations in tone. It sounded like language. Marcus felt his world shift slightly. In 20 years of working with animals, he'd learned to read their communication methods. Body language, vocalization, scent marking. This was different. The Lioness was trying to speak to him in a structured way, with specific sounds that carried specific meanings. "Impossible," he whispered. The Lioness tilted her massive head and repeated the sound sequence, more slowly this time. When Marcus didn't respond, she moved closer to him. Up close, her eyes were even more startling. The golden color seemed to shift and swirl like liquid metal, and Marcus could swear he saw patterns in the movement, symbols that flickered just at the edge of comprehension. The rope ladder hit the crater floor beside them. 3 soldiers in full hazmat gear were rappelling down, weapons drawn but not aimed. Their leader, a colonel by his insignia, touched down and immediately began shouting commands. "Step away from the animal. This area is contaminated. You're endangering yourself and civilian populations." Marcus remained where he was. The Lioness had moved to stand between him and the approaching soldiers, not aggressively but protectively. Her stance was all wrong for a wildcat. No fear, no preparation to flee or fight. She stood like a guardian, like someone who had made a conscious decision to shield him. "Colonel, this animal needs immediate medical attention," Marcus called back. "I'm authorized by the State Wildlife Department to handle this rescue." "Your authorization doesn't mean shit here," the colonel snapped. "This facility conducts classified research. Everything in this crater is potentially hazardous." The lioness made a new sound then, a complex series of what could only be described as words in a language Marcus didn't recognize. But somehow impossibly he caught glimpses of meaning. Concepts like help, friend, and protect seemed to float in his mind. The colonel and his men froze. In their surprise, one of them lowered his weapon slightly, and Marcus saw something that made his blood run cold. The soldier's eyes were the same liquid gold as the lioness's, and they held the same impossible intelligence. "Sir," the soldier said, his voice strangely formal, "recommend we abort this operation and return to base." The colonel spun to face his subordinate. "What did you just say, Sergeant?" The soldier blinked rapidly, and when his eyes refocused, they were normal brown. He looked confused, almost frightened. I don't know, sir. I feel strange. Like I was dreaming while awake." Marcus's mind raced. The metallic dust covering the lioness, the strange readings on his scanner, the impossible intelligence in her eyes, and now a soldier showing the same symptoms. This wasn't just a rescue anymore. This was first contact. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The lioness wasn't a lioness at all. She was something else, something that had taken the form of Earth's apex predator, an alien possibly, or something even stranger. And whatever she was communicating not just with him but somehow influencing the soldiers. "You're not from here," he said quietly, meant only for the creature beside him. The lioness looked at him with what could only be described as relief. She made a soft chuffing sound that felt like confirmation, then did something that nearly made Marcus's heart stop. She began to change. It was subtle at first. Her golden fur seemed to shimmer more intensely, and her proportions shifted slightly, not growing or shrinking but becoming more perfect somehow, more idealized. Her eyes began to glow with soft bioluminescence, and delicate patterns appeared on her coat like circuit traces made of light. "Holy Mother of God," breathed Sarah's voice through the radio. "Marcus, her body temperature just jumped 15 degrees, but she shows no signs of fever or distress. And the electromagnetic readings? It's like she's become a living battery." The colonel had his weapon raised now, aimed directly at the lioness. His men flanked him, but Marcus noticed they seemed hesitant, confused. The soldier who'd spoken earlier kept glancing between his commanding officer and the glowing creature, as if he couldn't decide who to obey. "Stand down," the colonel ordered. "Both of you! Get away from that thing before it infects you." Marcus stood his ground. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but something deeper held him in place. The lioness had revealed herself to him, shown him her true nature. That took trust, and Marcus had never betrayed an animal's trust in his life. "She's not dangerous," he called up to the colonel. "She's trying to communicate. It's an alien contamination vector," the colonel shouted back. "We have protocols for this situation." The lioness stepped forward and placed herself fully between Marcus and the weapons. The patterns on her coat pulsed brighter, and she made a sound unlike anything from Earth. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, a harmony of tones that seemed to bypass his ears and speak directly to his mind. Suddenly, Marcus understood why she'd taken the form of a lioness. Predators commanded respect on Earth. They were feared, avoided, but also admired for their strength and nobility. She'd chosen the shape of an animal that humans would recognize as powerful but not immediately. Destructive, she'd been trying to make herself non-threatening while retaining the appearance of something that could protect itself. "You're a refugee," Marcus said, the words coming from some deep intuitive understanding. "You're hiding." The lioness turned to look at him, and in her glowing eyes he saw confirmation. More than that, he saw gratitude so profound it brought tears to his eyes. She was alone, far from home, and afraid, but she'd trusted him with the truth. Above them, the argument between the soldiers had escalated. The affected sergeant was now openly questioning orders, and 2 more soldiers were showing signs of the same golden-eyed condition. Whatever the lioness was, her presence was somehow awakening something in certain humans. "Marcus," Sarah's urgent voice cut through the radio static. "You need to get out of there now. Military vehicles are surrounding the area, and they're bringing some kind of specialized equipment. Big trucks with satellite dishes and warning labels I can't read from here." The lioness heard too, somehow. Her head snapped up toward the crater's rim, and her bioluminescent patterns shifted to urgent, rapid pulses. She made a series of quick sounds that felt like warnings, like someone saying, "We have to go now." Marcus realized that whatever was coming, it would mean the end of any chance for peaceful contact. The Lioness would become a specimen, and the affected soldiers would probably disappear into classified medical facilities. First contact with an alien species would become humanity's first xenocide. "I'm going to help you get out of here," he said firmly, "but I need to know what you really are." The Lioness looked at him for a long moment, those impossible eyes seeming to weigh his soul. Then she began to speak, not in sounds but directly into his mind, sharing images and concepts that would change everything Marcus thought he knew about humanity's place in the universe. Marcus Chen had seen many strange things during his 15 years as a wildlife rescue coordinator, but nothing like this. The emergency call came in at 3 a.m. from a frantic farmer whose land bordered the new government research facility outside Phoenix. Something was trapped in what the farmer described as a hole that shouldn't exist. When Marcus arrived at dawn, he understood the farmer's confusion. In the middle of an ordinary pasture sat a perfectly circular crater, about 30 feet across and 20 feet deep. The walls were smooth as glass with an odd blue shimmer that hurt to look at directly. At the bottom lay what appeared to be a full-grown lioness, motionless but breathing. "Sir, you can't go down there," called Officer Rodriguez from the sheriff's department. "We're waiting for the military folks from the facility to show up." Marcus ignored him. In his experience, bureaucrats moved too slowly when an animal's life hung in the balance. He'd already seen enough injured wildlife die while people argued about jurisdiction. The lioness had been down there for hours, according to the farmer. Every minute counted. "That animal needs medical attention now," Marcus said, checking his rappelling gear. "I'm certified for this kind of rescue." The crater's walls were stranger up close. The surface felt warm and slightly vibrated under his touch, like standing next to a massive speaker. The blue shimmer seemed to pulse in a slow, steady rhythm. Marcus had worked around enough industrial accidents to know when something was dangerous, but his instincts told him the lioness was in more immediate danger than he was. As he descended, the air grew cooler and somehow thicker. His ears popped twice, though the pressure change made no sense at this shallow depth. The lioness remained still, her golden coat matted with what looked like metallic dust that sparkled in the morning light filtering down. Marcus landed softly beside the great cat. She was magnificent, easily 400 pounds of pure muscle and grace. But something felt wrong beyond her obvious distress. Her breathing was too steady, too controlled for an unconscious animal. Wild cats, especially injured ones, rarely breathed with such perfect rhythm. "Easy, girl," he whispered, approaching slowly with his hands visible. "I'm here to help." The lioness opened her eyes. Marcus had looked into the eyes of countless predators during his career. He knew the difference between fear, pain, confusion, and aggression. But these eyes held something he'd never seen before: intelligence. Not the clever cunning of a hunting cat, but the deep, complex intelligence of a thinking being. The lioness watched him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. She didn't try to move, didn't show any sign of panic or defensive posturing. She simply observed him with those impossibly aware golden eyes, as if she were studying him rather than the other way around. "Jesus," Marcus breathed. "What did they do to you?" He knelt beside her massive head, checking for obvious injuries. Her pulse was strong and steady. No broken bones that he could detect. No signs of trauma or blood loss. Yet she remained perfectly still, watching his every movement with those unnerving eyes. Marcus had brought his portable scanner, a device originally designed for checking microchips in domestic animals, but sensitive enough to detect internal injuries in larger creatures. When he ran it over the lioness, the readings made no sense. The display showed impossible vital signs, brain activity patterns unlike anything in his database, and strangest of all, what appeared to be a secondary nervous system running parallel to the primary one. "This can't be right," he muttered, checking the device's calibration. Above them, voices echoed down into the crater. The military team had arrived. Marcus could hear heated discussions about contamination protocols and unauthorized personnel. They'd want him out of there immediately, and the lioness would become another government secret buried in classified files. Marcus had dedicated his life to protecting animals that couldn't protect themselves. He'd seen what happened when creatures ended up in government labs, Even if they had good intentions, bureaucracy and research schedules didn't account for an animal's psychological well-being. "I'm going to get you out of here," he told the lioness quietly. "Whatever this place is, whatever they did, you don't belong in a cage." The great cat's eyes seemed to brighten at his words. Impossible, but Marcus could have sworn he saw recognition there. Understanding. He activated his emergency beacon, the signal that would bring his rescue team with the proper equipment for large animal transport. The military would try to stop him, but Marcus had legal authority for wildlife rescue operations. He'd worry about the consequences later. The lioness shifted slightly, not trying to stand but adjusting her position so Marcus could more easily attach the rescue harness. The movement was too deliberate, too cooperative for a wild animal. Everything about this situation defied his experience and training. "Sir, you need to evacuate immediately," Rodriguez's voice echoed down from above. "This area is now under federal jurisdiction." Marcus continued working with the harness straps. The lioness remained perfectly still, but her eyes never left his face. Those golden orbs held depths he couldn't fathom, secrets that made his scientific mind race with possibilities. The blue shimmer on the crater walls began to pulse faster. The vibration under his feet intensified. Something was happening. Some process or system responding to the presence of people in the crater. Marcus felt a sudden urgency that had nothing to do with the approaching soldiers. "Whatever you are," he whispered to the lioness, "I won't let them turn you into an experiment." The great cat made a sound then, not quite a purr, but something close. A rumbling that seemed to come from deep in her chest, almost like she was trying to speak. The sound sent shivers down Marcus's spine, not from fear, but from a strange sense of recognition, as if some part of him understood what she was trying to communicate. Above them, ropes dropped into the crater. The military team was coming down whether he cooperated or not. Marcus secured the last strap of the rescue harness and looked into those intelligent golden eyes one more time. "Trust me," he said simply. The lioness blinked once, slowly, deliberately. Marcus could have sworn it was a nod.